as there he sat again, stuck in his head, he said, "Damn, but I'm sick of staying at home." Life. The face that life puts on to make the ordinary take it as being almost, somehow, human. Local conditions. Its fallback position for the unusually simple. Oh, okay, death. Its final comfort for those extremely so. Life. You just got to love it, because it'll either slap you on the back or knee you in the balls. And if you're ordinary, make you love it either way. Anyway. Let's face it. No, let's don't. Yeah, let's do. Title. The simple like to do and think simple things. And if you believe otherwise, you deserve your own personalized individual synonym for unusually, extremely, and extraordinarily simple. Routine minds gathered up the notion of the faithful amongst the infidels, a wolf in sheep's clothing, all from a less than comprehensive understanding of what it would be to be more complex amidst the simple. Those part way from Paris to Istanbul left to tell of the travails of their travels thus far, while those who've actually been there would rather speak of matters other. Help for everyone else. The great thing about being sick is that no one can take it away from you. A non-standard, non-surgical procedure. If you knew how the inevitable talked about you, I don't think you'd have quite the same feelings toward your old buddy. And finally, this tip from the annals of uncertainty and the halls of hesitation. When in doubt, don't rewrite, just go with it. And as always, to maintain the normal healthy balance of routine existence, lots more didn't get it than did, Sid. So how come you never wondered, why do men plan for illness but never health? Look, down on the ground, right here on Earth. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a planetary explosion. No, it's simply a man engaged in that certain activity we were talking about. One guy's directions to himself. First take a right, then a left, then another right, then go straight, then back to the left, then to the right, back straight then, and said, yeah, I get it. Did you? Yeah. An athletic quiz. In what three sports does closeness count? Horseshoes, archery, and the expansion of consciousness. Okay, what kind of mental jockstrap believes the third one was correct? Answer, our kind of everyday healthy person. Get it? Huh? A sign on the monastery wall read, "A question is as good as an answer to a dead man. And please be quiet as you leave in consideration of those passed on." Some who came to attend the place only got as far as the sign, and after reading it, left. Well, did you get that one? One man rode a certain train for so long that all of the cars and compartments began to look alike. According to how sharp you are, this could either be a heartbreak or a heaven send. Oh, conductor, does it cost more to be depressed? No. Sir, I believe you're just experiencing the blandness of the landscape and mistaking it for your own condition. Why, I do believe you're right. Well, thank you, Mr. Conductor, thank you. Not at all, sir. Not having a hormonal medical doctor on board, the responsibility falls to me to try and assist the few alert travelers in matters regarding mental perspectives. What passes for wisdom amongst the collective is the present most popular common cliche. The king of the cows does not kill all messengers, only those who bring him new news. Down. So pondered one man, where is the entertainment that inspires man? Why did that certain original road split into two separate walks? But the question better framed, what can the past be other than a weight, a hobble to an anxious man's step? The ordinary do battle with a bunch of people. A true warrior fights but one foe. And it's not himself. and fight is not the right word. If you're not now hurting, and you ask yourself if you're feeling as good as you possibly can, there's no way to answer. Same regarding your level of consciousness as seen from your ordinary mental position. A man who wants to do right doesn't do right unless he does right because it's the right thing to do. Stupidity. What a deal. What a return policy. If for any reason you're not satisfied, you can exchange it for an equal amount. A more perceptive mind has as much compassion for everyone else as it has itself. The ordinary, having nothing else to take seriously, take so matters hormonal, which in fact need no such attention. Yet another indirect outlining of why the human intellect, operating at its natural capacity, can never rise above itself, nor answer the very first question it ever asked. The more perceptive mind has as much tolerance and compassion for all of traffic as it does for any individual vehicle, including its own. Consciousness is not linear, but speech is. So when you talk about it, makes it sound so. Justice. Oh no, not that again. Yes, again. The simple do not need help, and certainly cannot benefit therefrom. Yet who cries the loudest for it? As the stalker lay motionless in the bushes, he was wondering, just what kind of noise does more complex hunger make? Revision. It's not that ordinary people are too dense to understand what life's about if they were told. It's not that exactly, but something close. And now, rule number 6. Don't support the past. That is, don't hang out with the dead. And a man asked, well, what was rule number 12? And why was I not made aware of it while yet alive? Temporal sequence and linearity of all persuasions assist naught in non-spatial assaults. The storming of the maypole. If I may inject a personal editorial comment. The reason men think that the great secret work is so great and so secret is because it is so goddamn great and neat, and because it is so plain, obvious, and right out in the open as to be pretty near invisible to the untrained eye. Yay. The voice of the announcer declared, even lacking direct physical association, voice contact is most important in a relationship. And the man thought, yeah, that's why I talk to myself. Another commercial drawback to more conscious news and commentary is that it doesn't advertise or promote itself. Common morality. Whip a dog, tie an ass, teach a man to beg forgiveness. One man put off all questions of time until tomorrow, because that too was the right thing to do. Okay, here's a simple method. If you think that people actually know what they're talking about, just listen to them real clearly with nothing on your mind to interfere with the hearing. After looking over the first several issues, a boy asked his father, what do you call it if you subscribe to a magazine entitled, let us say, Archaeology, and it turns out to be primarily concerned with the intrigues, infighting, and squabbles amongst archaeologists and not about the field itself? What do you call that? And his elder replied, you call that the routine mental life of men. He later gave the kid a moral to their conversation. Never sneer at another man's hobby unless your own is totally cost-free. If you believe that anything in life is more important than you are not in the mystical life. Since smart people don't know nothing, and dumb people even less, how can you be sure the ticket you purchase will actually take you where you want to go? Well, you can't. You pea-brained dervish with a blue dress, blue dress. When the highway authorities asked him to identify himself, yet again, one man was one day suddenly struck that there is a difference between a driver's name and the vehicle's ID number. The elusiveness of enlightenment put in these words: here is it, and it is here. Moreover, here is here, and it is it. What could be more remedial to elusiveness than condensation? A knowledgeable man is a compact man. One alien method: think in Venusian, speak in Martian, live on Earth. And now from another view, how to be undisingenuous, especially with yourself. Don't think in Venusian, don't speak in Martian, and never stay home. That'll keep you compact and spread out all at the same time. So mused one man. The worst thing about the past is that it's so predictable. Just as physical pain narrows consciousness, the more alert could use the discomfort of stupidity to focus their attention and energy to that splendid endeavor at hand. Telling the dumb how to undumb themselves is a dumb thing to do. If the collective talks long enough, they'll eventually say everything, but not in an order that they'll recognize as enlightening. The sole practitioner mystic must do this for himself alone in the privacy of his own office head. One late-breaking neurological theory is that man's brain has a right and left half so that they'll both have someone else to talk to. Keep in mind, this is only a theory and has not yet been proven and never will be. One man used to date himself until he heard about incest, then became an entomologist and could morally stay home alone. One day, legally stay home alone, morally stay home alone. One day one man said to life, "You make me sick." To which it immediately replied, "I was just going to tell you that. I thought of it first." And as always, local conditions, ass suckers that it is, backed him up. Just like monopolies in the city initially present themselves as being for the common good, likewise does collective thinking assure the individual of its objective, unselfish propriety. The ordinary like to tish about the folly and uselessness of preaching to the already converted, while in fact that is about the only audience possible for any discussions regarding the awakening. One man's reminder to himself each morning: you ain't alive, life is alive. You're just a subdivision. Looking out at the appearances of local conditions, one man said, "God, but I'm sick of thinking about the same old things." And his transcendental godmother whispered in his ear, "Well, damn, it's about time." Definition: the past, the original model for the concept of unoriginality. Okay, let's try it with this spin on it. When the ordinary hear things explained as they actually are, they find it boring. Truth is to pablum as entertainment is to gossip. Weren't you the original model for the Gerber baby? If life didn't have a great sense of humor, no one would ever forget to attend their memory improvement class, nor ever be too drunk to go to their AA meeting, and no ordinary mind would ever be so pathetically stupid as to believe that it actually knew anything. Irony is to understanding as weather forecasts are to electric blankets. When the complex get even more complex, things really start to get interesting. One man's romantic or perhaps mystical advice is to never talk about your love when she is not present. Those who don't know think of the awakening as an end, while the experienced look upon it as something to do. The idea of the future is one of the few mental concepts man has that may be of some significance. Maybe. How to tell that you're getting better? You start becoming allergic to the ideas of others. The city famous have machines that will sign their names, while those on the frontier have an awareness that supersedes the mind. The climbing instructor urged the novice, just let yourself go. Aspects of a more conscious man's super health. Anything you didn't think of is uninteresting. Life does tell its secrets, genetically. Though the road to enlightenment should be strictly neural and not hormonal, it's not. So get used to it. It may be that the more conscious are those who think about being more conscious more than everyone else. And yet, beyond all realms of thought, both literal and plain, symbolic and vague, night is night, day is day, 2 by 2 still 4, what more is there to say? We were talking about a kind of non-linear progress, and I even took so bold a step on your behalf tonight to point out that while consciousness is not linear, speech is, no condition, speech is, and thus anything you can say about it makes it sound so. And other than consciousness, I could have been a bit more verbally spooky at the outset and said the reality of enlightenment, the awakening of consciousness, the ignition of the nervous system to a higher area in the brain is not linear. There is no spatial assault possible. That's not the playing field. It is not an attack from a trench across a no man's land anyway, it is not a spatially directed attack. It would be more like, my little thrown in the midst editorial comment would be like a omnidirectional advance on a maypole, the maypole being... So anything you can say that is outside, anything that you intend to say outside the normal realm of expected verbalization, expected comment, has got to be, or would be, by its very nature, not linear. And since speech is, though, no matter where you started from, it is going to sound so, unless you are making on your own a kind of reciprocal effort to think at least metaphorically, if not symbolically. Is to realize that even though it sounds as though it is some sort of sequence, it is not. It would be, if indeed there was any validity to it, it would be an ever-changing question of how close you were to Istanbul, to the maypole, how close you were to being freed from having an editorial comment, a preference as to what is going by in traffic, which perhaps we'll get to someday. So we were talking about, if you recall, and me describing not just verbalization, but using it as in the form of thinking itself, of going from the literal to the metaphoric to the symbolic. And by the way, those of you who are getting really good, I might point out that this same sort of non-linear sequential progress you could also see as going from, if you'd like to change the context, from going, let's go to another area within the electromagnetic spectrum, is going from the invisible to the blue, to the yellow, to the red, and back to the invisible. And I meant that literally. We had gone from the literal to the metaphorical, which I was intending to show you is a parallel, continuing form of thought to the literal. It is not a replacement of the literal. It is not an abandonment of the literal. And it is, in truth, not really a suppression or a superseding of the literal thought. Because if you're going to still be sane enough to ever have the experience that all this is about, rather than become some towel head wrapped would-be drugstore weekend mystic, you cannot lose touch. You do not lose touch with the crudest, most simplistic, unsophisticated, everyday literal form of intellectual reality. That you never lose sight, you never lose awareness that in your own nervous system you run a 24-hour-a-day striking example of a Mississippi trailer park. It is a literal telling of reality at the lowest possible level of collective mentation about what life is up to. But running parallel to it, oh, all right, I'll do the goddamn, what you call it, gesture. Running parallel to it. Well, that helps a lot, doesn't it? I make the jokes, but of course it does, which I try to get you to consider some length of time ago, that you, at the ordinary level, people will not seriously consider information unless it's entertaining. They will not seriously consider it, sincerely consider it, unless the source is entertaining. And thus, and I'm not referring to me, I'm just referring to anybody in this kind of situation, you're left with the fact that if you are not entertaining, if you do not seem to be likable, if people do not care for the presentation, I mean, if you don't give them something, if you don't present it in some kind of way, no matter what it is, they may go, well, at first I liked it, but Jesus. Once I started listening, and I thought about the words, and at first I thought, that's the kind of thing I had tried to think about and I'm interested in. And so I started listening to it, and I listened, gee, I bet I gave it my full attention for, I don't know, 5 or 7, 8 minutes. Again, we're not referring to poor old me. Consider poor old you, that you try your best to not bring yourself the same old news, that you try and think of something new, which is the only way to shake yourself out of the complacency of looking out there and telling the conductor, I'm feeling depressed. What's going on? And the conductor points out that you are mistaking the blandness, the sameness of the landscape out there, which can happen. It can happen even while going through Switzerland, believe it or not. Going through this great metaphysical journey on the Transcendental Oriental Express from Paris to Istanbul, that you look out, and the conductor said, nay. When you become too accustomed to the compartment in the ride, the blandness of the landscape that you're observing, you begin to mistake for your own internal condition. So that's the rattle of the track. And of course, that kind of dazed condition does not require that one present oneself into the safe, comfy arms of Amtrak here in our country. You can sit at home and go. You can walk the streets. You can be pulling off big deals in the world of finance and other places while going down. Clickety, clickety, clack, clack, clack. Metaphorical thinking is a parallel running to the literal. And we're trying to build up enough steam to where we can be the little engine, you know, to get to symbolic thinking. And since we have tried now for 3 or 4 nights and not made it, I think I'll take the mystic's way out and just jump right over and just do it. What the hell? It's not like this is a chorus. It's not like this has any logical sequence. It's just me attempting to superimpose even the vaguest notion of it so as to save some of you the problem of going, am I losing my mind anew? But see, now that's the other side of it, mistaking the blandness of the landscape for your own internal condition. Because now you could be seeing the peaks and valleys of dear old Switzerland and thinking, am I losing it? Whereas it is simply your own internal condition beginning to clickety-click. All right. Metaphorical thinking is the parallel, just to remind you before I arbitrarily jump into the symbolic. It would be, if it helps at all, I was trying to give you some sort of hint, the kinds of things that even at a fairly now innocuous public level it's remembered as being, or proclaimed to be, remembered words of great wise, awakened, enlightened masters from the Buddhas and Confucius and Abrahams and the writers of all the holy script of all times and nations. If you notice, it is all very plain. It is only their apologists, it is only them, those who come along and have to make a living on top of that turn it into the occult, the mystical, the hoochie coochie coo. Because it is all very plain. Except it's very plain on the basis that first you read and you think, well, boy, it sure is plain. But it's like somewhere in the plainness, somewhere in the white bread, somebody stuck in just like a little dash of pumpernickel or a hot pepper. It's just not quite right. It just sounds all right. Think about it. Just, well, the heart of Western culture / religion / the whole idea of Christianity and really the heart of Judaism and variations all over the world, the whole thing about if this was going to be the height of man's possible spiritual achievement, or that to which he would aspire, such things as love those who hate you. Just simple as hell, love those who hate you. You think, well, boy, okay, until you think, wait a minute. Now you can do all that for yourself. I always hate to use some of those because you're so used to them, it does almost pass through you like a white bread sandwich. But you just think, well, you know, yeah. I mean, it sounds profound. Yeah. I mean, it's real plain. There's nothing weird about it. No calling upon gods and spirits of the dead. It just says, here's a secret, you know, the preface being, here is something that would, if you could do this, you would not live that same old life. You would not be bland in your view of the external world, nor in your internal perceiving machinery. If you could do the following. And you go, all right, yeah. In other words, this could help wake you up. This could help expand your consciousness of the world. And you go, okay. And it says, here it is. Nice trick. Love those who hate you. And you go, wow. And it sounds real simple. The sentence, structurally, grammatically simple, and the idea sounds simple. Forget for a second what would be involved in doing it. The words themselves, the idea, that is the thinking, sounds simple, and yet everyone knows. As soon as you hear it and go, wow, okay, all right, okay. And you start to walk off and you think, wait a minute, somebody has slipped a pickle in on me. You know, that's not fair. That sounds all right, but something's not fair. Something's not right. That is, I was suggesting to you, trying to get you to consider a way, that is a reflection of a continuing parallel form of metaphysical thinking. Remember, but it's tracking. It's not imposing itself. It is not replacing. It is not a critic of literal thinking, which is to say it is not a critic of the way life is ordinarily lived by ordinary men, which is the reality behind love your enemy, love those who hate you, treat your fellow man as yourself. Don't cheat an Indian until he's Walk 4 miles in your sister's shoes. Or I wish you guys would finally get that one straightened out. Don't visit North Carolina in someone else's moccasins. Is that it? Well, you get the gist of it. It is a thinking that tracks what's going on in life, which is not because it's important, it's just traffic, it's just noise, but it's there. It is the heart, it is the plowing field of your own consciousness. You had to think in the same way that the collective thinks. You had to have your own intellect ignited, plowed, sowed, and you began to think in the same way that those around you did. Not right or wrong, not better or worse, not Christian or Jewish, not Italian or Ethiopian. You just thought literally. There is absolutely no benefit, there is no profit of any stripe to be gained from the attempt to abandon that. That is just childish, useless rebellion. And if it did not take you out of the mainstream, that is, turn you into Daffy Duck, all it would do is turn you into some of little consequence street rebel. Man with a beret and a Molotov cocktail in one hand and a being and nothingness in the other. In cheap paperback. That's all you would amount to. It is again one of the fine lines of how anyone even reaches an age of adulthood, more or less. And for you women, adulteroushood. With any stirrings, with any hard wiring genetically to ever pursue this sort of activity and not go absolutely bonkers before you're, or either bonkers or just a raving, as I said, of no consequence rebel, just a smart-ass, sarcastic rebel of some sort, critic of life, but it's almost a miracle. That suddenly felt like a TV preacher. It's almost a miracle. People seem to like that kind of stuff. That's a miracle. To be wired up to have any potential to ever pursue this sort of activity and make it into your 20s and not be just either crazy, just nuts, or be just some kind of sore-headed red ass, just pissed at life in general, and able to very likely, in a literate manner, and maybe entertaining manner, point out that almost everyone is naked, that almost everyone has been impregnated or at least been flown over and shit on by Captain Irony, that nothing is like people say it is. I mean, what a grand discovery. What an absolutely marvelous unveiling. But if you reach the age without going through either of that, what you're then left with is you have got to be able, you do it naturally, I'm just describing it after the fact, that you understand, it's no big deal, but you understand that the way in which life works, the middle of life's nervous system, the middle class bourgeoisie, the ordinary, sane, everyday man and woman in life, the way it works, which is above the survival hormonal level, bio survival level, we're talking about man's intellectual life, the only thing of any consequence, the only thing open to even the possibility of mutation in one lifetime, then you see that all of that is of no consequence. It cannot be changed. It's neither good nor bad. There's nothing to be said about it. It's traffic going by. There's only children sitting out on the porch sticking their tongue out. They've never grown up intellectually that holler, boy, I love Cadillacs, or I love General Motors cars, but boy, I hate those imports. Or I'm a Pontiac man. Don't talk to me about a Plymouth. I love green cars. I love two-doors. You're a kid. You're just out there, you're sitting around with some kid like boys used to when they were growing up, playing about which car I want when I grow up. It's the same thing that now you're an adult, and it's the traffic, which is the literal thinking process running through humanity collectively. It's the damn traffic. It goes on, in case you haven't noticed. It goes on. See, I keep forgetting here on earth. How many? 24 hours a day going on. In fact, I hear tell, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I hear tell that people even notice it or claim they do when they are, the traffic keeps going. That is literal thought. So if you do not go crazy and you do not become a severe, useless, adult, childish smartass, you understand that there is absolutely nothing to be gained by having your preference out there in traffic. It is simply a hobby of the ordinary. It is a hobby of the bored. It is the kind of thing that keeps ordinary, routine minds occupied. It keeps life going at the intellectual level, collectively speaking, of people thinking they have a preference. Oh, I like that car, it looks Jewish. No, wait a minute, here comes a Muslim vehicle. Here comes an idea I agree with. No matter what it is, it's noise. It's literal thinking. But when I say it's noise, you know I do not actually mean that in a negative manner. It just is there. Metaphorical thought is being aware of that. There's traffic. You're aware of that, but you can think about it in a parallel manner that has no preference, is not prejudicial, is not parochial, is not faux individualistic. Because if you're dealing with traffic, the literal thought is never individualistic. Would you repeat that? Okay. Collective thought is never individualistic. And anything taken therefrom, I mean, literal thought is never individualistic because it is collective, which also is why I keep throwing in these little news items trying to give you hints of a man who said he was sick of staying home, a man who said he was sick of other people's ideas, a guy who said that he was to the point that even reading, he began to almost feel like it was plagiarism. It is. If you are dealing with ordinary thought, would you define dealing? You can define dealing. If you're entertaining, would you define? If you're entertaining other people's collective thought. The tricky part is, though, those who pass for being fairly alert and perceptive in the ordinary world find great exception to that because they would say, wait. And many times they'll hold up a finger because they won't be entertaining and make gestures too. I thought of it first, though. They'll say, hold, hark, hold, wait. They'll say, now, what ordinary people think, what you're calling collective thought, oftentimes, I'll admit, is a waste, if not antipatically incorrect. And therefore, I am not part of the herd. I do not run along what other people think. Contraire, I am the sort that tends to stand aside to wait a minute and take a critical view of it. That passes, always has passed. That will get you into most, well, if not a major university, at least a community college. And it will get you probably 2 or 3 free martinis, a cup of hot tea at the weekly session of the philosophy, sociology department at Harvard, Princeton, or even the University of Oklahoma. Just on the basis that you go, someone says, what do you think of the neo-deconstructionist theory now regarding Western literature turned sideways? And you say, can I have another cup of that tea? No lemon this time. And you go, well, and they don't know who you are. You're just standing there and you look as white bread as the rest of them. And you say, well, I've just heard of that. Of course, it was just published yesterday. You never heard of it, but you go, I've heard of that. And I understand. No, I understand the credentials of what's it? And they say, Professor, remember wrong. You go, yeah. I'm fully as familiar with his work as you people are, and you nod, and they nod too, because they don't appear dumb. So everybody nods, And you go, but. And it's far be it from me to question his intellectual wherewithal. And you nod, and they all nod. And you go, and yet, even as impressed as I am by his past work, I cannot lay aside, nor can any of you, I'm sure, And they'll go, no. You go, my own personal critical attitude. I mean, in an objective, scientific way, of course. And they'll go, yeah. In other words, that sounds very, but it's not. It's the whole idea of not criticizing. This comes out in a very superficial and crude manner in religion and ideas of morality amongst the ordinary. It's the whole thing about not criticizing, not trying to pluck out an overweight academician from your neighbor's eye until you can pull out this teacher's assistant from your own, that kind of thing. The whole thing about not being critical is this. I brought more up to date, the tar baby dynamic. Anything you criticize, anything, here it is. This is simply the dynamics of three-dimensional reality being run by binary forces, which is the right and left brain, so that I'd have somebody to just talk to me? Yes, talk to. That one sure did get a lot of response from you people, which makes me wonder if some of you are not hiding more under your skull than I imagined. But anything you criticize, you are as stupid as it is. Of course, I am being non-scientific in those terms, but exactly. And it doesn't matter what. Once you understand that, it's not open to question, and I can be dramatic and call it stupid. But no matter what it is, at the ordinary level at which man's intellectual affairs run, anything, and you can pick out something that by any sane, common view is absolutely, start making up your own synonyms. Insane, irrational, despicable, unacceptable. Just some theory that you heard. Somebody stands up and says, well, here's the way I think society should be run. And they come up with some sort of idea that just sounds just horrible. How's that? Awful. Getting better. Just yucky. All right, back to more intellectual realms. Something that is just absolutely irrational, unscientific. Take anything you want to. And that's what I was doing this little thing with the man there at the tea party. The mind will tell you, and it never analyzed, never questioned it, that anything that is so far afield from reality, which what they mean is, it is far afield from the collective thinking of the time and place, that it is a thinking man, it is an intelligent man's responsibility. Let me forget that it's open to some question. It is not open to some, it's not an alternative. It is an intellectual, a thinking man's responsibility to point out folly, foolishness, uncivil behavior, unthinking suggestions. It's his duty. On your duty. You knew that was coming. Anything you criticize, you are as dumb as. There's no way out. And there's no way to convince anybody. And I can do that forever. You cannot convert anybody to that. And I understand that because ordinary intellectual people will want to turn right back on me if they were the sword. Of course, they've got better manners. They'd go, well, on you. Because it is not true. It is not reality at ordinary level. It cannot be. It would stop the parade of mass progress. It would stop the general collective parade of humanity if indeed, let's say that what I'm saying verbally is as correct as can be. That if in some way we could suddenly stop the mass of all ordinary, sane, civilized humanity and say, hold it, listen to me right quick. I got something important to say that will change the whole flavor and direction of life. Anything you criticize, read my lips, anything you criticize, you are as dumb, you are as worthy of criticism, but dumb, you catch my drift by now, you're as dumb as it. Immediately. Just no conditions, no asterisks, no footnotes. If I could do that and make people go, my God, all you would see would be out of the parade of 6 billion, if we say mostly, the better part of 6 billion people in a parade. Have you ever seen like 6 billion dominoes all fall over at once? Go to their knees? Plus, if I could do it, you sure wouldn't want to see momentarily after that what life would do to me for having done that. It cannot be. Do you understand? At the ordinary level, it is simply, I'll be charitable. From their view, it would be insanity. It is so close to a blunt statement of how life is that they couldn't really work up much of a lather to attack the idea. It's almost beneath them. You follow? If someone stood up, I don't mean just me, but if somebody stood up and made that presentation, got the world's attention, and said, listen, anything that you criticize, you are at the same level as what you're criticizing. The folly, the stupidity of life that you see, the inhumanity of man, everything. Let's call it the stupidity of man. Anything you criticize, you are as stupid right then. No conditions. I am not speaking metaphorical, folks. You're as stupid as it. Ordinary, sane people, that is so close to unacceptable bluntness that is so close to a real, non-sequential, non-linear detailing of what life is, that it would almost be beneath them to work up much interest or passion in denouncing it. That is, they wouldn't get all excited and go, "Oh my God!" You know, like it was so close to the truth that they couldn't face it, which is sort of true, but it wouldn't even work up that kind of passion. It just almost, as they listen, they might say, "You want to repeat that one time?" And they'd kind of nudge each other, like, see if I'd actually do it. And so if I repeat it again, they'd go, "Yeah, right." Yeah. And they'd be prone to go in another room. You understand why? That would stop, I said, the parade of mass collective human progress, but it would also individually stop an ordinary man's mind from working, which is always the real case as far as they're concerned. They don't know how to explain it. But to try, which is sort of the folly of trying to advertise, promote, or convert, to win over somebody to this sort of thing. The closer you get, if there was some trick, or if you knew how to get closer and closer to people and go, "Well, maybe I can't win them over, but by God, I can get them kind of interested and maybe get them to the point that make them real nervous and they feel like maybe they are breaking out in a neural rash." The closer you get to that, the more they'll just almost treat it as beneath not only contempt, but beneath even much notice. They just kind of go, "Oh." And they're prone to go, "Oh." They don't know what else to do because there is nothing to go with. I could give you again, it's many of the ideas inherent in the world's religions, which coming out now is a reflection of the Gerber baby version of it. Many of the ideas, the aphorisms of all the world's religions, the idea of Zen koans, the unanswerable questions, the lost chord, Judge Crater's airplane. See, not many people knew that. They always thought it was Amelia Earhart. Anyway, looks like we're again mixing up metaphors and a 747. But you remember what Buddha said? The first time he saw an unassisted triple play and a 747, even he went, "Caramba." But for those of you keeping track, that is not, he is not to be confused with that guy who said that the only two things he regretted in life was that he didn't marry the Pointer Sisters, or hear Hank Williams Sr. sing, "I heard it through the grapevine." Now, those are two different things now. That was not Buddha. Metaphorical thinking, in the sense I'm saying it now, but we're not talking about the metaphorical use in the world of literature. We're talking about an actual person being able to continually, not spasmodically, not accidentally, and not as adjudicated after the fact by others, to be able to do so, but for you to be alive, for a person to be alive and constantly watch what's going on, both literally and non-literally. That is, to understand what is literally taking place in life, what the human mind is saying out there collectively, the traffic. To have that going on and to personally, individually, be running a continual tracking parallel form of metaphorical sort of translation, but a metaphorical version of what is going on there. They're both going. That, to all intents and purposes, is impossible for the ordinary mind. It literally, it chemically, it electrically interferes, would be a hobble, would break the normal flow of the human mind. But I would also suggest you, again, suggest being a silly allegorical thing so I don't just keep saying, "Well, listen here." I always like suggest because it seems to convey a certain kind of fake humility, or even real humility, which is worse, which is a cover for stupidity. Well, now, I may not know what I'm talking about, but let me suggest this to you. Okay. I mean, the preface was enough. Somebody says, "Now, I may not know what I'm talking about." After that, it's, you can say, "Well, carry on," and then you start clickety, clickety, clack, clack, and you take a nap. I was going to suggest that if you can see it in a certain way, it would be a living, operational, a peripatetic, operational version of what is attempted to be described in many of the world's religions and mystical aspects of religions, of the descriptions of an enlightenment, an awakening, a higher and intense state of spiritual awareness. I'm just plucking them out from all the way from the East to the Western cultures. But it's that kind of thing of some sort of, that God has reached down, the drawings of Milton, that kind of stuff, and lights coming down, or that I in some way plugged in to the power of creation. I was in some way, the scales were taken from my eyes and I suddenly looked reality. I looked at life as it was. All of that. I'm suggesting to you, other than that being some sort of static state that in some way may come upon a man as a reward for prayers, for devotion to the religion, for whatever reason. But it's always looked at as being an isolated condition, a state that happens to a man that is artificial, it is either a one-time thing or a periodic thing, etc. Other than that, what I'm suggesting to you now is the living, continual reality of that kind of description is what I'm saying is being able to still not lose what you originally had, the awareness, continual awareness of the literal thinking that is running man mentally, collectively speaking, and at the same time individually, which is, remember I keep saying parallel, it's not just so I can do this, is you're running on a parallel track. You're not over there trying to stop traffic. You're not interfering. You're not internally talking to literal thinking. Everybody else going, well, you stupid sons of bitches. What the hell are you people doing? You idiots. It just goes on. Who's going to criticize traffic? Well, many people will. If I'm asking, now I'm talking about between you and I, you and me, considering you to passing for reasonable people. Who the hell's going to criticize traffic? So it's not you fooling with it. It's running parallel to it. You don't ever get, you're not even trying to get over and fool with it. But it is an individual, which is, you've got to be individual thinking to be able to do it metaphorically. You're running parallel to it. That is how I'm suggesting is the living individual. When I say living, that is, it's operational. It's going on continual reality of all these described mystical states, these higher spiritual conditions, etc. And since we're out of time, I think we're getting very close now that perhaps next time we'll get on to the grand subject of symbolic thinking. That's assuming that the several people who requested it several weeks ago have not now died. They're not entombed with cobwebs back there as they wait for me to reach the promised land. Subject.